everyone. Well, today we're going to read Happy Christmas 5, written by Annette Blyton. This will be our friend today. She will help us read. So she will sit here. She would sit there, and we will begin. Chapter 1. Christmas Eve at Curran Cottage. And the five were all together. They were up in the boys' bedroom, wrapping Christmas presents in bright paper. Timmy was very excited and nosed about in the room, his long tail wagging in delight. "Don't keep slapping my legs with your tail, Tim," said Anne. "Look out, George. He's getting tangled up in your ball of string." "Don't look around, Anne. I'm wrapping up your presents," said Dick. "There'll be a lot to give out this Christmas, with all of us here and everyone giving everyone else something. I've got a BONE for Timmy," said Anne, "but it's downstairs in the larder." "I was afraid he'd sniff it out of here." "Woof!" said Timmy, slapping his tail against Anne's leg again. "He knows perfectly well that BONE spells bone," said Julian. "Now you made him sniff all about my parcels. Timmy, go downstairs, please." "Oh, no. He does so love Christmas time and helping us to wrap up parcels," said George. "Sit, Timmy, sit. I say, that's the third time you knocked down my pile of presents." Downstairs, her father and mother were wrapping up parcels too. They seemed to have as many as the 4 cousins upstairs. Mrs. Curran looked at the pile of packages on the table. "Far too many to go on the tree," she said. "We'd better put all our parcels and the children's too in a sack, Quintine. We can't stand the sack at the bottom of the Christmas tree, and you can be Father Christmas and hand them out tomorrow morning." "I am not going to be Father Christmas," says Mr. Curran. "All this nonsense as Christmas time. Bits of paper everywhere, parcels to undo. Timmy barking his head off. Listen to him now. I'll go mad. He's to go to his kennel." No, Quintine. Don't upset George on Christmas Eve," says Mrs. Curran. You go and sit down quietly in your study and read the paper. I'll finish the parcels, but you must be good and hand them out to the children tomorrow morning. And yes, hand Timmy's to him too." Supper time came all too soon that night. When the bell rang to tell the 5 that meal was ready, they all groaned. "Have to finish afterwards," said Dick, looking around the mess of parcels, paper, string, ribbons, and labels. "Supper, Timmy, supper." Timmy shot downstairs at top speed, bumping heavily into Mr. Curran, who was just coming out of his study. Timmy gave him a quick look of apology and ran to the dining room, putting his front feet on the table to see what was down there. "Down, Timmy. What manners," said Julian. "Hello, Uncle Quintine. Done up all your parcels yet?" His uncle grunted. Aunt Fanny laughed. "He's going to be Father Christmas tomorrow morning and hand out all the presents," she said. "Don't scowl like that, Quintine dear. You look just like George when I tell her to fetch something. I do not scowl, said George, scowling immediately. Of course, everyone roared at her, and she had to smile. Christmas Day tomorrow, said Anne happily. Aunt Fanny, it's lovely of you to have us all here for Christmas. We'll never finish opening our parcels tomorrow morning. I've got at least one for everybody. And so does everyone else. A nice little bit of arithmetic, said Julian. That means we've about 40 or more presents to undo, counting in those for Jonah and Timmy. What a waste of time. That remark came from Uncle Quintin, of course. It's a good thing you're not as horrible as you pretend to be, Dad, said George, and grinning at him. You always look so fierce, and I bet you have been around the shops buying all kinds of things. Hasn't he, Mom? I bet he bought Timmy something too. Stop saying I bet, said her father, and don't put ideas in Timmy's head. Why on earth should I go shopping for him? Woof, said Timmy from under the table, delighted to hear his name. He wagged his tail violently, and Mr. Curran leapt to his feet with a yell. Take that dog out! Slapping me with his tail like that. Why can't he have a short tail? I'll... Sit down, Quintin, said his wife. Timmy, come out. Sit over here now. Let's change the subject. The four cousins looked at one another and grinned. It was lovely to be at Curran Cottage again, with dear kind Aunt Fanny and quick-tempered Uncle Quintin. He was now beaming around at them, offering them a second helping. No thanks, said Dick. I'm saving up for the pudding. I spotted it in the larder. Scrumptious. Chapter 3. After supper, they finished their parcels and brought them all down to the sitting room. The tree was there, looking very cheerful, although the candles on it were not lit yet. It hung with tinsels and little sparkling ornaments, and it had at the top, the fairy doll had been on every Christmas tree since George was little. The parcels were put into a big sack, and this was the sack at the foot of the tree, ready for the morning. Timmy immediately went to sniff at it from top to bottom. He can smell his Christmas bone, said Anne. Timmy, come away. I won't have you guessing my present. Later they played games, and Timmy joined in. He was so excited that he began to bark. Uncle Quintin stormed out of his study at once and appeared in the sitting room. George, I've told you I won't have Timmy barking in the house. Yes, I know it's Christmas Eve, but I can't stand that barking. Why must he have such a loud one? It's enough to deafen me. I'll turn him out. He can go to his kennel. Oh no, Dad. Not on Christmas Eve, said George, horrified. Timmy, go and lie down and be quiet. He's to go to his kennel, said her father. That's my last word. Out, Timmy, out. So out poor Timmy had to go. His tail well down. He felt puzzled. The children had been shouting, hadn't they? It was their way of barking. Well, what couldn't he shout in his own way, which was barking? George was cross. Anne, almost in tears, poor Timmy, to be sent out to his kennel on Christmas Eve. She went to comfort George and was surprised to see that she wasn't looking upset. Don't worry, Anne. I'll fetch him in when we go to bed and he can sleep in our room as usual, she said. You can't do that, said Anne. Uncle Quintin will be furious if he discovered him there. He won't. It's no good. And I'm going to have Timmy with me tonight, although I know I shouldn't. I couldn't bear not to. I'll own up to Dad tomorrow. So, when the household was safely in bed, George crept downstairs to fetch Timmy from his kennel. He whined softly in joy and wagged his big tail. Be quiet now, whispered George, and took him upstairs, completely forgetting to lock the kitchen door. Timmy settled down on the rug beside her bed, very happily. And as soon as Anne and George were fast asleep in their beds, while the two boys slept soundly in their room nearby. Chapter 4. All four were awakened by a terrific bout of barking from Timmy. He stood at the bedroom door, scraping at it, trying to open it, barking at the top of his voice. George leapt out of bed in alarm. What is it, Timmy? What is it? Stop barking. Dad hear you and know you're in the house and not in your kennel. Oh, do shut up, Timmy. But by this time, everyone was wide awake, and as soon as the household was out of the landing alarmed, George Fathers was very angry when he saw that Timmy was in the house after all. Why isn't he in the kennel? What is the matter with him? How dare you disobey me, George? Take him out to his kennel at once, George, said her mother, very cross too. He's overexcited tonight. It was all that fun and games you had. Take him at once. But Mom, he doesn't usually bark. Perhaps there was a burglar in the house, said poor George. Nonsense, said her father angrily. No burglar would come on Christmas Eve. Take the dog out to his kennel, and don't let me hear another sound tonight. Go on, George, now, said her mother. Do as you're told and don't spoil Christmas. Timmy was very sad to be put into his kennel again. He whined dismally. And George almost made up her mind to stay outside of it. But the kennel wasn't big enough to take both of them, so she gave him a hug and went indoors with Anne, scowling in the darkness. This time she remembered to lock the door behind her. Soon everyone was in bed again, sound asleep. Anne awoke a little while later and sat up in bed. She had heard something, some noise downstairs. She sat and listened. Was there someone in the sitting room? Then she heard a click, like a door being shut, she thought, and wondered if she should wake George. No, surely Timmy would bark loudly if he heard anything suspicious. He was only just outside in his kennel. Perhaps he had heard than he had barked before. Well, anyway, I'm not going downstairs by myself in the dark, thought Anne. And I really daren't to wake Uncle or Aunt. I must leave Timmy to deal with whatever it is. He can always bark or howl if someone is about. Chapter 5. Timmy had heard something, and he was sitting in his kennel. His ears pricked up. A little growl rumbling in his throat. He really didn't care to bark this time. He had heard something before, when he had barked in George's bedroom and had awakened the whole household. And yet there had been nobody downstairs that he could see or smell. But somebody was in the house. Someone who had crept in at the kitchen door when George has left it unlocked. That somebody had hidden in the coal cellar, the door fast shut, when Timmy had barked and alarmed the whole household. Now nobody was about again, switching on a small torch, making the little noises that had awakened Anne. It was Tom, the bad boy of the village. He had been out to a rowdy party and had passed Curran Cottage on his way home. He had tiptoed to the front of the door and gone to the garden door and tried both handles. No, they were locked. Then he had to slip around the kitchen door, and to his surprise and delight, had found it opened when he had turned the handle. He had crept inside and was looking around when Timmy had begun to bark upstairs. And as quick as a rabbit, Tom had slipped into the coal cellar and shivered there while the household came out to the landing, angry Timmy, who then was put into his kennel. When all was quiet, the dog was safely in his kennel. The boy looked quietly around to see what he could take. He thought he had heard a noise and stopped in alarm. No, it was only the coal dropping in the grate. He felt scared and swung his torch around and about to see what he could easily take away with him. He saw the sack lying by the Christmas tree, how it was bulged with parcels inside it. Tom grinned with delight. Must be full of wonderful presents, he thought, all nicely bundled in a sack. Too, couldn't be easier for me to carry. He lifted it, put it over his shoulder, and tiptoed out of the kitchen door, shutting it with a little click, the click that Anne had heard from upstairs. Timmy knew there was someone about, of course, but now he didn't dare to bark. He had been put to his kennel as a punishment for barking. If he had barked again and woke Mr. Curran, goodness knows what would happen to him. So he kept completely silent and slipped out of his kennel and down the garden path after the boy with the sack. And he followed him all the way to the village, unseen and unheard. How he longed to growl, how he longed to fly with this nasty little robber boy and nip him sharply in the leg. He saw the boy go through a gate and walk to a shed nearby. Went in and came out again, but this time without the sack. Then he let himself into the house nearby, shut the door, and disappeared. Timmy had sat down to think. After a minute, he went to the shed and slipped through the the half-broken wooden door. He smelt the sack at once. That bulging sack belonged to George. Very well, it must be at once be taken back to Curtin College before the boy took out all the presents in it. Timmy sniffed the parcels inside. His own parcel was in there, the one with the bone that Anne had wrapped up for him. Timmy growled, so that boy dared to carry away his bone. Timmy decided to take the whole sack back to Curtin Cottage. But it was far too heavy for him to drag out of the shed. What was he to do? So he worked his head to the open sack. Neck again and pulled out a parcel, then another and another. Good. He would take them one by one to his kennel and hide them for Christmas morning. And that's exactly what dear patient Timmy did. He took all those parcels one by one to his kennel, trotting back and forth so many times that he began to feel like he's walking in a dream. It was lucky that Curtin Cottage wasn't far from the boy's home, or Timmy would have trotting to and fro all night. At last the sack was empty, and the last parcel safely tucked into the back of the big kennel. There was hardly any room for Timmy to sit in it. Tired but very happy, he put down his head on his paw, fell sound asleep. He was awakened the next morning by a great hubbub in Curtin Cottage. Aunt Fanny, Uncle Quintin, the sack of presents is gone, and the kitchen doors wide open. Someone stole our presents in the night. That's why Timmy barked. He knew there was something going on. Oh, our beautiful presents. What a mean trick. But why didn't Tim catch the thief when he slipped out of the kitchen door with the sack? Poor Tim. He must have been too scared to do anything after being scolded for barking before and made him go to his kennel. Christmas is spoiled, said Anne with tears in her eyes. No presents at all. No surprises. No fun. Woof, said Timmy, coming out of his kennel as the four children came up the path. Woof. Who took our lovely presents, Timmy? And where do you think they are now? Asked George sorrowfully. Didn't you dare to bark? Woof, said Timmy in an apologetic voice and went into his kennel. He backed out with something in his mouth, a parcel. Then he went in and fetched another, and another, and another. He laid them all down in front of the astounded children, wagging his tail. Timmy, where did you get them? Where's the sack? Did you chase the thief and take the parcels one by one out of the sack and bringing them home? Asked George in wonder. Woof, said Timmy, agreeing, and wagged his tail vigorously. He pawed at one of the parcels, and Anne giving him a delighted laugh. That's my present for you, she said. You knew it was for you, Tim. You smelt the bone inside. Darling Tim, how clever you are. You stored all our presents safely in your kennel so that we'd have them on Christmas morning. After all, I undo the parcel and you'll have my present first of all. Woof, 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 barked Timmy in delight, and not even Uncle Quintin frowned at the tremendous noise. Good old Timmy opened and then go indoors and gnaw your book while you watch the others open theirs. Happy Christmas to all the five, especially to you, Timmy Dog, especially to you. So that's the end of our book.